warm welcome to all of you who have chosen to tune in today. The focus for this short reflection is mainly on the Gospel according to Mark for the 29th Sunday in Ordinary Time, which follows. James and John, the sons of Zebedee, came to Jesus and said to him, "Teacher, we want you to do for us whatever we ask of you." He replied, "What do you wish me to do for you?" They answered him, "Grant that in your glory we may sit one at your right and the other at your left." Jesus said to them, "You do not know what you are asking. Can you drink the cup that I drink, or be baptized with the baptism with which I am baptized?" They said to him, "We can." Jesus said to them, "The cup that I drink, you will drink, and with the baptism with which I am baptized, you will be baptized. But to sit at my right or at my left is not mine to give, but is for those for whom it has been prepared." When the 10 heard this, they became indignant at James and John. Jesus summoned them and said to them, "You know that those who are recognized as rulers over the Gentiles lord it over them, and that great ones make their authority over them felt. But it shall not be so among you. Rather, whoever wishes to be great among you will be your servant. Whoever wishes to be first among you will be the slave of all. For the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many." For several weeks now, Jesus has been teaching, or trying to teach his disciples about service and servant, and the sacrifices and suffering that will come along with his impending arrest, torture, and execution. He meant to get their attention and help them understand what was expected of those called to follow him. In the gospel several weeks ago, Jesus told his disciples that the Son of Man was to be handed over to men, and they will kill him. And 3 days after his death, the Son of Man would rise. The disciples did not understand, and they were afraid to even question him. They were also discussing among themselves on the way, talking about who among them was the greatest. Jesus told them, to their surprise, "If anyone wishes to be first, he shall be the last and the servant of all." The idea is that those wishing to be first would be last and the servant of all, and that Jesus would give his life as a ransom for many, are repeated in the gospel for the 29th Sunday. And this gospel highlights the depth of the disciples' repeated failure to hear Jesus' message. For the 3rd time, he has told his followers of his impending arrest, torture, and execution. But Peter and the others among the 12, especially including James and John, they seem to imagine Jesus only as a gloriously reigning Messiah, a king, in the mode of what people expected at the time of the day. And because they imagined him as a gloriously reigning king, Messiah, they imagined themselves having important positions, somewhat analogous to the president's cabinet. In contrast, though, Jesus' disciples were being called not to greatness, but they were called to aspire to greatness through service to others, not by exercising control and dominance like the kings of the time would do while they sought glory, but in a way that would also require them to sacrifice, because aspiring to greatness requires sacrifice, especially when following Jesus. And because Jesus serves the needs of all at the cost of his death, those who follow in his footsteps can do no less. Jesus' best lesson is the example of his own life. He set the bar at the highest level possible, and then he exceeded it. Because of this, there is much to reflect in this gospel. And I focused on the ideas of service and sacrifice for a specific reason. And that is because while reflecting on this gospel passage, the words in the very last section really struck me because they reminded me of an experience that I had on Holy Thursday in 1992. The words in the gospel that caught my attention in particular were as follows. Rather, whoever wishes to be great among you will be your servant. Whoever wishes to be first among you will be the slave of all. For the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. So that passage really caught my attention, and the Holy Thursday experience back in 1992 is as follows. Back then, I was unemployed, looking for a job and not having a whole lot of success doing it. The parish priest at the time asked me if I would be willing to come to the Mass of the Lord's Supper, Holy Thursday, and be one of the 12 who would have their feet washed. And I thought, well, that sounds like an easy thing to do. I wasn't doing anything anyway, so I thought I would just, do that at Mass. I was intending to go to the Mass anyway. So we went to church on Holy Thursday, and those who were having their feet washed had assigned places throughout the church. That was the model that was being used. So after the homily, when it was time for this, I went to my assigned seat and waited for the priest to come over with the water basin and towel, which he did. And when he came over to where I was sitting, I had already taken off my sock and shoe, and he knelt down. I put my foot over the basin, and he proceeded to pour water over it. At the same time, I distinctly heard him say in a low, whispering voice, "I come to serve, not to be served." It was like time stood still, and a gong had gone off in my head. I thought, what just happened? It was a very quiet, holy moment as I look back on it, to hear those words whispered, "I come to serve, not to be served." I have never forgotten this experience. Hearing the words, "I come to serve, not to be served," has had a profound effect on my life. And this experience is like it happened yesterday. It helped me to discern a call to become a permanent deacon. These words also continue to animate my efforts at trying to serve versus being served. And I can wholeheartedly recommend listening to, praying with, and acting on these words. In a sense, it's a simple thought. I come to serve, not to be served. I think it's something that when we repeat it and pray with it, it will become very easy for us to focus on that. Because the ideas of aspiring to greatness through service to others and sacrifice for others, those are radical ideas. Certainly not ideas that are found commonly expressed, especially in the world that we live in. And that they are repeated in the Gospels shows how important they are. We are all continually called to aspire to greatness through service to others and sacrifice for others. Answering this call to serve others requires an ongoing personal sacrifice, and it's transformative for us. Though it's not something that's easy, but if we engage in that, we benefit from that because it helps to transform us, as it will enable us to better follow that example that Jesus set, who served the needs of all and sacrificed his life to assure our salvation. And so I want to suggest that we take the words and example of Jesus to heart. Find a quiet place and ask ourselves in prayer, how are we called to service and sacrifice? And then, after asking the question, listen and choose to act on the answer that will come to us through the prompting of the Holy Spirit. And may God bless us as we continue on our journey.